Hey guys, this is Arjun Pratap, CEO and founder of Edge Networks, a talent management tech startup based out of Bangalore, India. And we're called Edge. And it's really a pleasure to be here talking to Vikas Bagal, who is one of the members of HCL Technologies, which is a top three IT services company globally, and has 150,000 people and gives us a complete in-to-out experience of what talent supply chain is. And I think Vikas has been one of the people I've known, and at least he, in his experience for the last 15 years, has been sort of managing through talent supply chain, enterprise social networks, recruitment firsthand, and talent management itself. So Vikas is a wealth of knowledge. I've learned a lot through my journey as a startup entrepreneur through the eyes of Vikas, and I've seen him in multiple forums, also contributing to making sure that employees, the workforce, candidates, the entire talent management space is looking to better itself at every curve. So thank you, Vikas, for being a part of this, and it's great to have you talking to us today.
Thanks, Arjun. You've been kind, and thanks for having me here.
Great. So the topic of the conversation today is literally going to, the new talent equation. And I think what we are talking through is returning to the post-pandemic workplace. And I guess it's been beaten to death as to what's going to happen and how it's going to happen. And all of us are waiting for uh, uh, you know, uh, the coming of the vaccine, as they say, but we still don't know what that means for many of us. And if we had to take it to the work 2.0 sort of new normal equation, what are your views on the sort of new work environment that we are seeing today?
Well, I think most of us have said that last year has been about a lot of realization, right? Personally, as well as for the organizations. I think some of the notions which we had in our head, all of us had a desire to give work from home, but we have a lot of apprehensions and inhibitions about it. I think one of the things which pandemic did is it cleared some of those inhibitions. Some of those pilots which we were running at a very small scale, we had to suddenly do it by force at a massive scale. And we got those results, right? And all of us now realize that some of these are going to be new realities. The work from home perhaps is going to be new realities, and it will not be talked as add-ons or any additional thing which you're doing for employee. It will become a new normal. So I think in light of those, many of our organization are also trying to think through to say how should we get back to, if not all, perhaps 25% or 30% employees should come back to office if they wish to. And I think that is one thing which will come as post-pandemic trend is where a lot of it will be driven by the desires of employees. Right. The whole aspects of employee experience is not going to be boxed around technology and the tools and the features, but it is also about how the whole structure and the treatment of employees is going to be meted. It's not only about employee experience should not be boxed only about what tool are you releasing for the employee, but it also about the whole self of employee, right? His physical well-being, his financial well-being, his mental well-being, and that is going to be the employee experience, right? And I think that is one thing which has changed now. Earlier, when we used to talk about some of these things, we were only talked about certain section of it, right? When we talk about experience, we automation, technology, all of that. But now, when we talk about experience, we are also considering these aspects, financial aspects, mental aspects, health aspects, etc. So I think these are some of the things and which are still early trends, but I think if the last year has been about reflection and introspection, this year is definitely going to be about action for sure, because we all of us have done our thinking, we have done our crystal balling. Now we'll get going and do some of those things which we have been thinking about for last quarter or more than a quarter now.
Absolutely. And, honestly, to give you more credit than you're taking, I think one of the things that I've seen also through the lens of HCL is just the fast pace that pathway to not only buck the trends but to set the pace. So one of the things, and I want to take this segue, and you have been part of the employee first sort of journey, and one of the first companies that did it, at least from an India-centered standpoint, where you put the employee first in the middle of everything. And this was like what, 15 years ago. So when you look at that journey and you look at what that means to you, thinking of it, I think you reflected upon it being through technology or the process automation or a new tool that you give an employee. But today, based on your experience over the last 9 months, it's not about the tool or the process. It's more about the engagement, the experience that you're developing for them, and what are you catering to ensure that productivity is being achieved for the company as well as the employee, right? So I think it's in the center of that. And you highlight very quickly the trends that you're seeing through the lens that HCL has specifically, but more importantly from your lens, because I know you speak very widely on employee engagement. How do you see, the employee experience and employee engagement model fitting into, say, a hybrid virtual work model? Do you see a lot of that change entered?
Yeah, I think, yeah. So many companies have come forth and said that, Arjun, and I'm talking about the large corporations who have come forth and said that we are not going to be, we'll never get back to the pre-COVID kind of work engagement where 90% of 95% plus of workforce are going to be in the office. Most of them have said that it's going to be a hybrid model because we realize that it works because there's enough data for us to show that productivity hasn't gone down. If anything, perhaps people have worked harder than ever before while they were at home, right? And it's a personal experience as well. I'm sure it goes for you also. While we were juggling these many balls, right? Managing the kids, managing the parents, managing the household chores, but yet we have been delivering the same productivity. And therefore that notion of, to say, getting somebody within the 4 walls and roof for 8 hours to be able to do the right productivity, that notion is broken now. And therefore the hybrid model is going to be the reality. And unless you are in a kind of job or you're in kind of a role where you're forced to be in office because of certain compliances norms or the nature of work which you do, I don't think so there is going to be any employer who's going to force people now to come to office. It is going to be on the wills of employee. If somebody wants to come, and there are people who are comfortable perhaps working out of office for various other reasons. If that's so, you can. But I think there's other side of also other side of the same topic where people say that ultimately work from office is not only about that, it is also about connecting with people, right? When you connect with people, perhaps you achieve more, you sort the things out shorter, and when you do the brainstorming together, you come with a lot of bright and innovative ideas, which you can always question to say, why can't you do it virtually? But all of us know that it is not same when you're in same room sitting across the person, because then you can really connect at a different level, right? You can see the emotions, you can see how the person is behaving on a particular topic or a discussion. I think some of those things are going to be there, and therefore the hybrid model is going to be the reality. The virtual will live, and perhaps it will become 60-40 for some. It could be 70-30 for some, but more or less, I think the realization is there. It is going to be the new norm. As far as experience is concerned, I was reading this very interesting report, the Global Trend 2020 report, and one of the very interesting data was there to say most of the C-suite consider employee experience to be a very, very important topic, perhaps 48 to 50% of them. Okay. But most of them do not know to say what is the benefit of it. Can the employee experience drive my business outcomes? They can't draw that line. Sure. And that's a dichotomy we live in. While we understand that, okay, employee experience is important and we need to do something about it, but how do I draw that line to say, if I do this in experience, if I make this investment in employee experience, what am I going to get out of my perhaps company output or overall productivity? And that's where the people like you will come into the picture. A lot of data analytics, a lot of trend reading, and give some sort of tangible data to people and the industry to say that yes, there is going to be benefit of it, and you can draw the line. I think all of us at a gut feeling level, we know there is a benefit.
Yeah.
But if somebody wants to create some model and framework around it and table it to perhaps CFO's organization to say I need this investment, and I think that's where there is a gap today, and we need somebody's help to sort that out.
Okay, so this is a great point for all those startups who are sitting out there and are building employee engagement and employee experience products. I think hearing it from Vikas and a large enterprise is very important to draw the line between the ROI and employee experience. So, and I think I hear you on that, because when we go to functions that manage talent supply chain, I think you're at the segue of really aligning billability, productivity to allocation and movement, including connecting train to deploy ratios to allocation, right? Which really is the segue of drawing that line. And people haven't been able to see through that, and you have this great product that does great things for employees. Hence, it's good to have, but not something that I put in as a line item as part of the annual operating plan. So I hear you on that, and this is also for all those startups out there who are building some great products. Draw the line to the ROI. I think that's a very, very important fact. Now, keeping that in mind, I think if I had to, ask you something that probably borders around productivity being something that you just talked about, and I've experienced it. I'm a great fan of interacting with people across the table. I find having pizza in a discussion room is like glue, where you're talking to people and ideas are flowing. But we don't have that availability today, and I don't know about tomorrow. We'll have to figure it out. But we're starting to connect virtually and just make sure that we're trying to work around that missing piece, in my opinion. Productivity has stayed together, and I think, going by fact, even Josh Bersin cited this very recently, that financial security and job security were driving people to work harder, especially in the US, where there have been significant job losses to COVID and what the pandemic has done. Keeping that in mind, productivity is improved for all of us at great levels. What is the organization benefited from in terms of a cost standpoint? Is it lowering of cost, optimizing of costs? Is that a mantra that you're seeing as a trend?
Yeah, the operating cost has certainly gone down, right? The travel cost, for example, there has been no travel whatsoever for last 6 months. And for companies of size and scale of ours, it is a huge cost. Transportation, for example, the cabs, etc., which you provide to your employees, the building operating cost has been significantly down. So I think some of those are definitely low-hanging fruits, which all the companies have plugged in. More so for the companies like us who used to work in that model where we always balance our cost and always keep a very close watch on that. But overall, yeah, as I said, I think there is enough data. Like you quoted Josh Bersin, there are people who have done it for APAC region as well, and all of them have came back saying that productivity has gone up. If not, as people were, doubting to say that it might go down and whatever may the reason. I think the reason could be the fear psychosis, as you said. There could be people who were seeing that things are not going around, and the microeconomic trends are very, 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 very devastating, and therefore people perhaps were working harder than ever before, for whatever reason. But I think it is also to do with, that is one aspect, but the other aspect is that most of the employees, when they were trusted to deliver for the company, and they could see that the company is in spot of bother, yes, I think they all put their best effort to ensure that we stay afloat. And I think that is the emotion which really drove some of those companies, and we have read enough of those stories, right, where companies cut salaries, and after a quarter company did well and they again reinstated the employee's salary. And I think those are the stories which really tells us to say that it was the employee and the employer who really put up hands for each other and took care of each other and navigated this troublesome time. And that's why, and as he was starting employee first, I think that's the only notion to say that people who are in your value zone, people who create value for you, while people who interact with your customers or consumers, those are the people you empower, and you empower them, in all aspects, financially, mentally, physically, health wise. So, and they will take care of you. That's all you need to do as a management, as an organization. You have to just do that, and rest of it, they themselves will take care. And there are enough examples and stories during last 6 months where all the CEOs did is, and I was reading this very interesting, I think Joss only wrote this article where he said that CEO has become a chief empathy officer now. They all are empathizing to the employees so much. They are putting themselves into their shoes, and they're enabling all those, changing the policies, processes, workflows. And I think that resulted, great for many industries, and people have really come forward and collectively did great things for companies to navigate these tough times. And I think that's a very, 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 very significant change, right? We have been talking about it, all the automation technology, and we were also talking about it to say that if that happens, what will happen to human aspects, right? And how will we balance between technology and human, right? And that this is the great example. We have never seen the kind of digital disruptions we have seen in last 6 months. At the same time, we have never seen the employee engagement levels are being higher, 65%, 75%, unheard numbers. These kind of numbers have never came for employee engagement and employee satisfaction. Absolutely. So that goes to show that you can balance out both. You can have a rapid disruption of technology, automation, all of that, and you can at the same time you can be more human and empathetic. And as long as you can create the balance of two, you can keep moving forward.
Absolutely, and I think what you guys have done as an industry is digitization at scale. I think the buzzword of digitization over the last 6 to 8 years was coming to fruition, and I think HCL has been one of the innovators, early adopters in that sense of taking technology to solve parts of a process and an outcome. I think that part has now, with the post-COVID, been really managed well. I think a lot of companies are actually looking at the model that you have and are learning from. In fact, what we hear from Josh is that 80% of companies are going to work like professional services consulting companies / services companies, because everything is pod-based. An automotive company is working in a pod-based model. A bank is working in a pod-based model, and banks have resource management functions today. I think that part is completely shifted, and I'm very, very fortunate to work in an industry that is going to be the next force of truth. So I've learned in that journey, and I think with that lens, I can understand what that means for, say, an oil company to change or a pharmaceutical company to change looks like. As you have seen this journey and you've seen it rapidly growing, and you have been also a part of the reason digitization at scale has been achieved within your business, how do you see, your employee assistance programs, for instance, as they work from home? Are you providing them any assistance on the outside, from the outside, to ensure that they don't go through, depression, or they're not having, issues with family and stuff like that, which are very personal things that we all were worried about and how we're going to deal with, because we're within the four walls and parents and children, and do you have stuff like that going on?
So I think for us, Arjun, we always had these programs. To be honest, we had these counselors whom our employee can reach at any given point in time to discuss some of those personal aspects. They can take legal help, medical help, psychological help, whatever help they need. We had these massive employee engagement programs, which used to do for the families, right? We used to have this, we used to host this talent show for the family of our employees, where children can participate or spouse can participate and some of those things. But what has happened is those were there, and they used to happen far and few. But in last 6 to 8 months, it became more of, we institutionalized some of those programs.
Okay.
And we started doing more regularly virtually because A, there was a need, and B, we had to do that for our employees, right? Because as you rightly said, they were going through difficult times, and mentally it was little taxing for all of us, right? All the
Absolutely.
news which we were hearing, and seeing the numbers, the way the numbers were growing in all parts of the world.
Yes.
We need to do something to ensure that that fear psychosis which was building because of media and news and all of that were being taken care of, and then the employees. So it was an over communication in many ways, along with these engagement programs, to ensure employees and tell them to say that we are with you, and and you'll be taken care of in any sort of eventualities. So I think that has really helped. And we have been very proactive in our approach. We kicked our business continuity plan way back in January, I think last week of January,
Okay.
because we could preempt, right? We could preempt that, there is, because at that point last year, October, November, news started coming, right? Something was happening in China, and all of that. So I think by January we had this realization that it can really explode. So we put up a plan around it, and by the time the lockdown, etc., announced, we were all prepared. We had all things sorted. We were ready to move our workforce for the virtual in a work mode. So there was, and that's why we could really navigate without much hiccups. Not only in India but across the world. So we've been lucky, and personally speaking, I have been driving these digital transformation projects for a while,
Mm-hmm.
and all of them has helped. So when we were in complete lockdown, all those technology and the workflows and the design which we have built over the years, it just kicked in,
Great.
with the snap of a finger, and all our recruitment got virtual, onboarding got virtual,
Great.
the candidate sourcing were anyway virtual, so everything just sets well for us, and it was like we were doing some sort of prototype for this kind of eventuality.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so it all became blessing in disguise for us, and if the adoption has gone up, suddenly we don't need to push anything, right? All the users started adopting the technology because they had no choice, they were in that kind of environment. So overall, it really worked out, and for us, when all our designs and programs are always built with that kind of you know horizon. We never build anything for short term. We always have a long bets to say that in and the eventualities to say that what will happen in scenario A, what will happen in scenario B. Does whatever you're designing, will it cover many scenarios, or you're just building for short term, near term kind of thing? So that ways, I think whatever we had created, it really fits in well for the situation we were in as an organization, and overall it really turned out well for us.
No, absolutely. I think in my experience also, if an organization sort of looks at ways that they can redefine through their strategy, and I think the redefinition has been very successful because of your ability to consume technology beforehand, looking at different scenarios. And obviously,
Yeah.
I think Trump should have taken a leaf out of your book and done something for America way ahead of time. But having said that, I hope through this session, other people who are listening to it will take a leaf out of your book, because I think your immediate response to the situation had been that much better because you had already played out some of these scenarios and taken into consideration some of these technologies as a path forward. So even in
Yeah.
your thinking, just accelerating it in terms of true digitization at scale was really about the numbers that you're playing out, which means, the actions that you're taking today because of what you've done, even 2 years ago is sort of, allowing you to do much better things going forward. So keeping that in mind, I think, because a lot of respect in terms of the thinking from a strategic standpoint with talent supply chain, literally because you have, you're taking care of 155,000 people across the board, managing them through this entire pandemic in terms of their security, their purpose, their direction, and their growth, which is commendable. I can't even imagine it when I'm looking at 100 people in Edge and thinking about what that went through. We were going through, sleepless nights, just wondering what that would mean, and multiply that with the number that you have. It's just unimaginable. So hats off to you guys. The other thing that I wanted to sort of highlight and sort of talk about as we close the session is the gig economy and the gig workforce. And we've heard this across the Gen Z and the millennial forming the talent marketplace as we speak, and work product becoming more short term, more sort of space to how it would fit into an outcome, and there would be multiple pieces that sort of fit into the puzzle. What does that gig workforce represent to you, and how would you leverage the power of that going forward?
Well, so we are already we employ close to, just to put the numbers, 8 to 10% of our workforce is going to be in that today in that mode. Fantastic. And as you said, going forward, perhaps that number will only grow up because we're already working on some of these programs where it's about taking, women who wants to come back to the work, and therefore that in the real sense, it's going to be gig where if somebody wants to work for 2 hours or 3 hours a day, they should have that kind of facility. And I think that's a trend in market as well, right? Today, if you look at, few years back, your hobby is just your hobby. Today, your hobby can become your profession as well. There are people who write blogs and get paid for it. There are people who give guitar lessons and get paid for it. And I may be playing guitar just for my hobby, but today I can earn money. There are YouTuber is a job, right? I create a video out of my hobby, and I'm earning because of that. So somebody is a YouTuber on Saturday and he's an employee of a company on Monday. So I think that is going to be the new reality because of all the new, trends and platforms and technology which are emerging. You can become, your hobby can become your profession really, and therefore you will always have more and more people who will be interested to do multiple things. I may not like to do 8 hours every day, 5 days a week, same thing. I would like to do 3 days I want to do something else, 2 days I want to do something else. And if that is the scenario, the companies have to give that kind of flexibility to the employees, right? Absolutely. Otherwise, you will lose out on certain good talent segment, which you don't want, right? You always want to have, and therefore the whole aspects of build versus buy versus borrow. Today we used to only talk about build and buy, right? Either you hire somebody or you retrain or reskill somebody internally. But this whole borrow piece where you go ahead and take some of these people for a stipulated timeline to deliver your project and get done with it, and then those people move on to their next assignment is going to be new reality. And all those, the whole aspects of those critical projects, which are short term, very time intensive, high skilled resources are required, which you may not need for your larger context of things. I think for those kind of things, the things like sports pro team, right, where you source different players from different part of the world, create a Manchester United for a season, win an EPL, and then all those people go back to their countries and play for their countries. But just for that tournament, they get assembled as a professional sports team. Something like that will happen within companies, right? You will have those special individual subject matter experts get together, become a project team, deliver a project for 6 to 8 months, and then they'll get disbursed and go back to either within the company or outside the company. So I think the gig is going to be the new reality because of these new trends which are emerging. And I think most of us are still contemplating, at least in India, it is still at a stage where companies are thinking to say, how should I put a framework around it? Okay. Today we are just consuming it in one pattern, in one manner, but now people have started thinking to say, okay, there are, because of not doing it at scale, perhaps I'm missing out something. And therefore I need to put some structure, some policy around it, processes around it to be able to, really tap into this market. Brilliant. So I think in summary, I think just the analogy that you gave about Manchester United, and I know
HCL has a relationship with them, and it's a great analogy of getting somebody to put a team together to go and win an EPL and then sort of go back and play for your country. And I know if you had to draw it back to HCL and working in 60 odd countries, you continue to use that flavor of working. And now I'm sure, for people who are going to watch this, it's about, following Vikas also and learning from what are the trends to manage this process going forward. I think there's going to be a lot of insight, Vikas, that you would provide through many of your interactions across social media that allow people to learn from, what that means for the future of work. So thank you, Vikas, for a great session. It has been a pleasure, as always, interacting with you and picking your brain. It's been also taking time out from your busy schedule. So thank you very much. And
thanks, Arjun. Likewise. Thanks, Arjun. Thanks for having me. It was great talking to you.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye.